Just have another baby. Go find another man and have a shotgun wedding soon.
The moment Diane said those words, my mind became strangely calm. I realized there was no point in continuing the conversation with her. Have another baby? The child in my womb is one of a kind in this world. There's no way I'm giving him to anyone. Understood. I'll get a divorce. And so, in the final month of my pregnancy, I divorced Andrew. But this wasn't the end. Just wait and see. My name is Natalie, and I'm 33 years old. I'm currently in the final month of my pregnancy, expecting my first child. My husband's name is Andrew. He's the same age as me and works as a government employee. He's a reliable and kind person. We met through mutual friends, and after he confessed his feelings, we dated for 3 years. Then, we lived together for a year, planning to get married. And once we found out I was pregnant, we happily tied the knot. Sometimes we have silly arguments, but he's a trustworthy and important partner to me. We're expecting a baby boy. Both Andrew and I are eagerly waiting for the day we finally get to meet him. There's not much time left until the due date. I need to make sure everything is ready for the hospital and take good care of my health. One day, while I was doing some stretching at home to prepare for an easy delivery, the doorbell rang again.
Natalie, I know you're in there. Hurry up and open the door.
A sharp, unapologetic voice rang out. I'm utterly fed up with these daily visits. As if being heavily pregnant and struggling with daily life isn't enough. Why do I have to deal with extra stress?
Natalie, are you sleeping or something? I know you're home. Get up.
Reluctantly, I opened the door.
Andrew's working hard, and here you are napping.
I wasn't sleeping.
Then hurry up and let me in.
Complaining all the while, my mother-in-law, Diane, barged into the house without hesitation. Does she not realize I'm in my final month of pregnancy and can't just rush around? So, Diane, what brings you here today?
I'm checking on how you're doing, of course.
If anything happens, I'll reach out to you. You don't need to come by every day.
It's so hot. How long is this heat wave going to last? Get me a drink.
I slowly got up and leisurely made my way to the kitchen. It was the least bit of defiance I could manage. What does she mean, a drink? What kind of person comes to check on a heavily pregnant woman and starts demanding refreshments?
And honestly, a shotgun wedding? I can't even tell the neighbors. It's so embarrassing.
As usual, Diane started her monologue, mumbling to herself. Diane, I've told you many times, we don't call it a shotgun wedding anymore. It's called a blessing marriage. Please use that term. After chugging down the cold drink I prepared, Diane furrowed her brow in displeasure.
What a strong-willed daughter-in-law. I can't believe you'd glare at me and act so defiant toward your mother-in-law.
I wondered when I had ever done such a thing. But it wouldn't surprise me if I unconsciously showed my frustration. Hearing the same complaints every day would irritate even someone as usually calm as me. Diane also doesn't hold back on saying things like how much weight I've gained or how my clothes don't suit me anymore. These unnecessary comments pile on the stress. But since it's hard for me to address them directly, I've asked Andrew to talk to her several times. Thankfully, Andrew is completely on my side. Still, Diane doesn't seem to care. She's the type of person who immediately says whatever comes to mind. I still can't tell whether she means any harm or if she's completely unaware. What I do know for sure is that she's not exactly an easy person to deal with. Diane divorced Andrew's father when Andrew was still a student and now lives alone. Because she has so much free time, she shows up like this every day. I headed back to the kitchen once again to prepare another drink for her. As I did, Diane muttered in a barely audible voice, just loud enough for me to catch.
I wish it was Mary who was having my grandchild.
This isn't the first time she said that. I pretended not to hear. Mary is Andrew's childhood friend and the only daughter of a well-known real estate agent in the area. Apparently, Andrew and Mary were in the same class in elementary school, and everyone teased them about being a couple. Andrew doesn't seem to remember much about it, but in Diane's mind, Mary is his destined soulmate from childhood. According to Diane, I'm the villain who ruined their perfect future and derailed her plans for their lives. When Andrew heard this story, he was furious.
Mom, stop making things up.
Andrew confronted her directly, but Mary herself isn't much better. She's been visiting Andrew's parent house frequently these days. While I haven't run into her myself, I've heard that she chats with Diane over coffee, hangs out, and even stays for dinner before leaving. No matter how close they were as childhood friends, it seems odd for a married man's childhood friend to make herself so comfortable at his family's house. And it's especially strange that she's so close to Diane without Andrew being involved.
I don't care about her at all, so you shouldn't worry.
Andrew tells me, but I can't help it. Being pregnant and dealing with hormonal changes has only made me more irritable. Now that I'm in the final month of my pregnancy and struggling to move around as I'd like, my frustration has only grown. Of course, I trust Andrew completely, but Mary's presence stresses me out just as much as Diane does. I'm not even sure if Diane comes over to check on me or just to nitpick. Sometimes I feel like she's only here for a drink and a place to cool off during her walks. After Diane finished her second drink, I spoke up. Diane, I need to head out soon.
Where are you going?
My prenatal checkup.
You just went last week.
Now that I'm in my final month, I have to go every week.
How inconvenient. I was planning to go shopping.
She glanced at me sideways and said,
So you expect an old lady to walk in this heat?
could she seriously be suggesting that I, in my final month of pregnancy, should drive her around? Andrew has already told me to avoid driving as much as possible, so that's not an option. Oh, shopping. Please take care. I brushed it off, but Diane got upset.
You're such an inconsiderate daughter-in-law. Mary would never say something like that.
Not letting that slide, I responded. I'm sure even this Mary she idolizes wouldn't turn into a personal chauffeur. I'm sorry, but canceling my prenatal checkup to drive you isn't really an option.
Nobody told you to cancel it. Just go a little later.
That's not something I can do.
Fine, then I'll come with you to the checkup.
Only Andrew is allowed to accompany me as per the rules.
Honestly, you're just...
Diane let out an exaggerated sigh. But her theatrics aren't my fault, so I can't do anything about it. If this went on, she'd start piling on passive-aggressive comments, and I'd end up late for my appointment. Diane, please don't feel the need to come by tomorrow. I have plans as well.
What? Wait a minute.
I gently but firmly ushered her out the door. I'm done trying to accommodate her at the expense of my own stress. Later, at my checkup, everything was fine. The doctor said it might still be a little while before the baby arrives. He advised me to keep moving and stay active to prepare for labor. On the ultrasound, my baby appeared curled up in the cramped space of my belly. I've heard babies choose their timing to be born, but how can he still not want to come out when it looks so crowded in there? I'm ready anytime, so come out whenever you're ready, little one. I gently rubbed my belly as I thought this. Today, I'll take a walk, stop by the grocery store, and then head home. As I walked in good spirits, I happened to spot Diane in front of the grocery store. She was walking cheerfully alongside another woman. Could that person be?
I feel like having fish today.
Well, if Mary says so.
Thank you. I'm so happy.
You're just such a sweet and honest girl.
I instinctively hid. I had just witnessed something I shouldn't have. The two of them looked so happy together, like nothing less than a perfect mother-in-law and daughter-in-law.
I wish Andrew would just be honest and go ahead and get a divorce now.
I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Divorce? Where is this even coming from? I could hear my heart pounding in my chest. Just then, Diane noticed me.
Oh, Natalie, what a coincidence running into you here.
With my big belly, I stood out even in hiding, so she spotted me immediately. This was bound to turn into a hassle, but I couldn't just pretend I hadn't heard, so I decided to speak up. Well, did you just say Andrew should get a divorce? Mary, Andrew's childhood friend, scrutinized me from head to toe. Her gaze was unsettling.
Oh, so you heard that.
Diane didn't even try to hide her guilt, responding with a defiant attitude.
If you hadn't gotten pregnant, Andrew would have married Mary. It's such a shame.
A shame? For whom?
Who else? Andrew, of course.
There was no way Andrew would say such a thing. Still, Diane and Mary both had triumphant looks on their faces.
Poor Andrew. Even if he was forced into this marriage, ending up with someone so plain.
Mary sneered at me as she said it. What's your problem? Forced into marriage? Regret? When I tried to counter, they exchanged looks and smirked.
Such a clueless woman. Mary is the right choice for my son.
I'm ready anytime. Andrew just needs to get a divorce and come back to me.
What? My head was spinning, and I felt like I might faint. What are they even talking about?
Do you understand your place now?
I couldn't find my voice. I was too shocked to even process what Diane was implying. Seeing me like this, Diane sneered.
Looking at beautiful, perfectly shaped Mary must have left you speechless. Andrew is way too good for someone like you. Oh, and once the baby is born, I'll take care of it. So give it to me along with Andrew. After all, it'll be the heir to Mary's family business someday.
What are these people even talking about? Their words were so absurd that they sent chills down my spine. I instinctively cradled my belly with both hands. This baby is mine. Don't treat it like some object you can just take away. I felt a surge of fear and fled from the scene. I walked as quickly as I could, yet carefully. As soon as I got home, I called Andrew. In a trembling voice, I asked for help, and Andrew, clearly worried, dropped everything at work and came home early. After hearing what happened, Andrew looked me in the eyes and calmly explained.
There's absolutely nothing between me and Mary. It's baseless. I have no connection with her and haven't even seen her in ages. If you're worried, you can check my phone or confirm my work hours at the office. I have nothing to hide.
Seeing the serious expression on his face, I decided to believe him.
But why would Mom say such things? And since when has she been so close with Mary? None of it makes sense.
I recalled Diane's words. Maybe she wants an heir.
What do you mean?
I'm not entirely sure, but she said something about wanting the baby, so maybe. Before I could finish, Andrew's expression darkened.
She said she wants my child? To make him Mary's heir?
It seemed I had touched a nerve in someone eagerly awaiting the birth of his child.
She's planning to take my child? I won't allow it.
I'd never seen Andrew this angry before. I knew he was excited about the baby, but I didn't realize just how deeply he felt. Don't worry. That's not going to happen. Even though I tried to reassure him, Andrew couldn't seem to calm down.
I'll never forgive them for this. I've warned her so many times. Even I have my limits.
His anger was palpable. You're right. I feel the same.
If she keeps this up, I'll take action.
After about an hour, Andrew finally managed to compose himself and return to work to finish what he'd left behind. Then, as if she had timed it perfectly, Diane showed up, and I was shocked.
Well, hello there. Running off in the middle of a conversation earlier was awfully rude. Were you so stunned by how beautiful Mary is?
What do you want, Diane?
I brought this for you.
She handed me a piece of paper, which I reluctantly took. It was a divorce application. I felt a chill run down my spine. Are you telling me to get a divorce? What was the point of checking on me every day if this is what you wanted? Diane laughed derisively at my question.
I wasn't checking on you. I was checking on my grandchild.
This is betrayal. You're doing this when your grandchild is about to be born.
You're the one who betrayed us.
What? I had no idea what she was accusing me of.
Don't play dumb. You tricked Andrew into getting you pregnant to break up the couple that was meant to be. How calculated. It's horrifying. A shotgun wedding just to trap a man. Disgusting. Poor Mary has been patiently waiting all this time because she's such a modest girl. And because of you, Andrew should have married Mary, taken over her family's business, and I would have been the proud mother-in-law everyone respected.
Diane rambled on, caught up in her bizarre fantasies. Wait just a minute. You've got it all wrong. Andrew and I wanted this. We were happy to have this baby before marriage. I even have friends struggling with infertility, so I have no regrets about our choice.
Stop making excuses. Be quiet.
It was clear Diane wasn't interested in hearing anything I had to say. She was lost in her own world.
Can you believe what this girl is saying? Oh, poor Mary.
She has nothing to do with this.
She does. Mary loved Andrew, but her parents forced her into a strategic marriage. And yet...
Diane's eyes welled up with tears.
Stop it.
With a scream-like voice, Mary stormed into our house. She stood in front of me, shielding Diane as if to protect her. Her breathing was heavy, and she seemed agitated.
You're just as awful as I heard. Attacking an older woman like this? Just because you're pregnant, you think you can get away with it.
Mary suddenly barged into the house, treating me like the villain. I was even more confused by what was happening. What on earth is happening here?
Mary, did you come because you were worried about me?
Yes, I did.
You're such a sweet girl.
Of course I am.
I stared in disbelief at the ridiculous scene unfolding before me.
How could such a good girl be abandoned because of infertility?
Diane dabbed her eyes with a handkerchief that Mary handed her. For some reason, both of them glared at me. Well, this is the first I've heard about infertility. If it's true, it must have been really tough, but…
See, you understand, don't you? Mary would make a wonderful mom. Naturally, since I'd be there to help her. And Andrew would make a great dad. So leave the baby to us.
How does that make any sense? Mary nodded beside Diane. I was too shocked to respond, and Diane continued to pile on.
You can just have another one. You'll be fine. Find someone new and have another shotgun wedding.
Hearing her words, something in my mind clicked, and I became oddly calm. I realized there was no point in talking to her. Have another baby? This child is one of a kind. I'm not giving him to anyone. I suddenly recalled Andrew's words.
If she keeps pushing, I have a plan.
I quietly said, if you insist, then I'll get a divorce. Diane and Mary were stunned for a moment, then broke into wide smiles.
Your shotgun wedding caused so much trouble, but I guess everything worked out.
Remarrying and getting the child too? This is so lucky. I'm so glad we worked together, Diane.
Work together? What is their relationship? No, I don't need to know. Right now. I just need to focus on delivering my baby safely. I took the divorce papers, filled them out, and handed them back to Diane.
Got it. Once Andrew signs, I'll submit them right away.
Diane and Mary looked delighted. As I packed my things, I called Andrew. I told him I had signed the divorce papers, that I would be going back to my parents' house for the birth, and that I wanted him to handle vacating our home.
Understood.
Andrew replied with a single word. This is fine. It's what needs to be done to avoid more trouble. I have my child to protect. No looking back. Just move forward. And so, I divorced Andrew in my final month of pregnancy. 1 month later, my precious newborn was sleeping soundly in my arms. He's a healthy baby boy who eats well, sleeps well, and cries with full strength. Thanks to my mom's support back at my parents' house, I've been able to manage childcare without major issues so far, though I hardly have any free time to myself. If I had time to watch TV or scroll through my phone, I'd much rather use it to sleep. I'm that exhausted. But even though I'm taking care of him around the clock, I don't feel it's a burden. Why? Because I love my baby so much. He's so adorable that I wouldn't mind if he stuck to me like glue. And it's not just me. My mom and, of course, Andrew feel the same way. We all watched with warm smiles as our little one cried his heart out. That happy moment was suddenly interrupted by my phone ringing loudly. The caller was Diane.
Hey, Natalie, where are you?
I calmly responded, Diane, you and I have no connection anymore. Wherever I am is none of your concern.
Hand over my grandchild as promised, you coward.
I don't know what you're talking about, and I made no such promise.
Where's Andrew? Mary is waiting for him. This isn't what we agreed on.
Taking a deep breath, I replied to Diane. You're right. This isn't what we agreed on.
What?
I know everything.
You know everything?
Andrew looked into it.
Looked into what?
Don't bother pretending. Andrew had been puzzled about why Diane was so determined to push for our divorce and take custody of our baby. His investigation uncovered a shocking truth. Diane had been involved in an inappropriate relationship with the CEO of a real estate company. Though Diane had been single for years after her divorce, Andrew couldn't believe, or didn't want to believe, that his mother was having an affair with a married man. But the more he dug, the more evidence he found of their relationship. It turned out that the CEO's daughter was none other than Mary. Mary had initially been involved to provide alibis for her father's affairs in exchange for pocket money. Over time, she and Diane grew closer and began to work together. Though Mary didn't get along with her own mother, it was strange, to say the least, for her to become close to her father's mistress. When Mary's marriage ended and she returned to her family, Diane jumped at the opportunity. Hearing Mary's story of being labeled infertile and mistreated by her in-laws, Diane comforted her, saying,
Poor Mary. Don't worry, I have an idea. Marry Andrew. He even comes with a child now.
Diane saw this as a perfect arrangement. By marrying Andrew and Mary, she could continue her affair without raising suspicion. As family, she could freely come and go from their home. And if she were spotted with the CEO, she'd have a plausible excuse. In Diane's eyes, Mary, with her charm, was a much better daughter-in-law than me. By orchestrating the divorce and offering up the soon-to-be-born grandchild as the heir to the real estate company, Diane likely believed she could curry favor and secure financial support. She envisioned a life of leisure, living off her role as the CEO's mistress. It was a ridiculous proposal, but Mary, feeling ashamed and displaced after her divorce, eagerly agreed.
Remarry Andrew? He's handsome and a government worker. Of course, I'll do it.
Great. Then help me. Together, we'll get Natalie out of the picture.
With everything falling into place, Diane took the divorce papers I had signed and handed them to Andrew.
Her pregnancy caused you so much trouble, but it's fine now. Go ahead and submit this.
Diane, eagerly waiting for the return of her grandchild, received no word from Andrew or anyone else. And of course, she didn't. After learning about Diane's infidelity and Mary's true nature, Andrew had already decided to cut ties with his mother for good. But Diane, convinced of her righteousness, had no idea the situation was irreparable.
Maybe Natalie broke her promise, or maybe the baby is being held hostage. What should I do?
In her misguided panic, she must have called me in desperation.
Tell me where Andrew is right now. Give me back my grandchild. Keep your promise.
Diane yelled angrily, her voice filled with frustration. Andrew is not coming back to you.
What?
He's on my side.
Really?
That day, Andrew told me.
I'll file for divorce with my mom as part of the plan to keep you and the baby safe. Don't worry about what comes next. Just focus on delivering our child.
Trusting his words, I filled out the divorce papers as Diane demanded and returned to my parents' home. Later, after learning the full truth, Andrew submitted the divorce papers. He did it not only because he couldn't forgive Diane's actions, but also to protect me and our child. Andrew then restricted access to his residency records to prevent anyone from locating him. Eventually, he remarried me and took my last name. I couldn't be prouder of Andrew for cutting ties with Diane, who tried to take away our child. Now, we're living together at my parents' home. And so, Andrew has nothing more to do with you.
That's impossible. Andrew is supposed to be with Mary.
He has no intention of being with her. And just so you know, Andrew now uses my last name and may become part of my family officially. Please don't concern yourself with heirs on your side.
What did you say?
Neither Andrew nor I want anything to do with you anymore.
That's a lie. Andrew gladly accepted the idea of remarrying Mary.
Did he? Really?
There's no way he'd turn down the position of next CEO of the real estate company and someone as beautiful as Mary. She's far prettier than you, Natalie.
Hearing that said to my face made my blood boil. It's true I'm not particularly beautiful, but that has nothing to do with this situation. Maybe so in general terms, but everyone has their own preferences.
How dare you talk like that?
Did you ever really listen to Andrew? Or were you just thinking about yourself this whole time?
You little.
At that moment, Andrew took the phone.
Mom, enough is enough.
He said coldly to Diane on the other end of the line.
Don't you understand why I've cut ties with you?
Diane seemed stunned to hear Andrew suddenly speak.
You don't mean that, Andrew. Cutting ties? What are you saying? Calm down. Let's talk this through properly, even now.
There's no need for that.
What?
Do you have any idea how shocking it is to find out your own mother has been cheating? I'm disgusted. It's the lowest of the low. I'm embarrassed to even call you my parent.
Wait, why are you saying such horrible things?
Diane was visibly shaken by Andrew's merciless words.
I see. Natalie must have poisoned you against me, right?
No, Mom. There you go again, making assumptions without evidence.
But it doesn't make sense otherwise.
What doesn't make sense is your behavior. And I'll tell you this, there's no way I'm letting you anywhere near my child.
What?
As I said, I have nothing more to say to you. Don't contact me again.
With that, Andrew firmly ended the call. Thank goodness, now I don't have to worry anymore. I was naive to think that way. On the day of my baby's 1-month checkup, Diane and Mary were waiting outside the hospital. The moment I saw them, my blood ran cold. Unable to locate us, they had decided to stake out the one place they knew we would show up. I can't believe they came all the way to the hospital. I should have been more cautious. I immediately considered calling the police, but as soon as I pulled out my phone, Diane spotted me.
There you are.
Diane marched toward me with determination, and I froze in fear. In my arms was my baby, peacefully asleep and blissfully unaware of what was happening. I have to protect him no matter what.
You thought you could escape, didn't you? Too bad. No one would give me your address, but I knew you'd have to come here, so I waited 3 days.
Diane's obsessive determination sent shivers down my spine.
Oh, is that my grandchild there? Let me see his face.
No.
What? He's my grandchild.
Diane looked like she was about to lunge at me. It was terrifying, but I couldn't afford to back down. What exactly do you want, waiting here like this? This time, Mary answered.
Stop holding him back already.
I was stunned by her sudden and unexpected accusation. Diane nodded in agreement, but I had no idea what they were talking about.
He loves me. Forced into marriage, he wished for my happiness and, out of desperation, or rather, in a moment of recklessness, he got you pregnant.
Mary's teary, theatrical delivery was like a scene straight out of a bad soap opera. I stared at her, utterly dumbfounded. What on earth is going on here?
When I became single again, he was trapped by you. We were like ships passing in the night, victims of cruel fate.
Has she been drinking in the middle of the day? Calmly, I asked, "What are you even talking about?" Diane cut in.
Don't you get it? Step aside. You're making the two people who truly love each other miserable.
This doesn't match anything Andrews told me. Since when have you two been in love?
Since elementary school.
That's news to me. Sounds like a delusion.
You're so cruel.
To an outsider, does she look like the heroine and me the villain? It was all so absurd, I couldn't even muster the energy to get angry. With tears in her eyes, Mary looked pitiful, while Diane fumed with anger.
Don't you understand? You're the obstacle here. Support Mary's remarriage and hand over your grandchild to her. It's only fair since Mary can't have children, and you can still have another. I promise to raise your child properly as an heir.
Diane, being someone's mistress, was in no position to make such promises. As ridiculous as their demands were, I couldn't just walk away. Leaving these irrational people unchecked might lead to more trouble. Worried they might ambush me again, I was trying to figure out how to resolve the situation when Andrew appeared, out of breath. When I had hesitated earlier about calling the police, I'd instead connected the call to Andrew.
Enough already.
Andrew's harsh voice startled both Diane and Mary.
Andrew, you came for me. Of course, you're my destiny. In the end, you'll be mine.
That's not happening.
Andrew barked, shaking off Mary's attempt to cling to him.
Stop it. What you've done is despicable too.
What?
Mary's expression changed instantly.
I had someone look into it, and now I know everything. If you keep this up, I won't stay silent.
Mary turned pale, while Diane and I stood in confusion. At that moment, a nurse from the hospital approached us. She seemed concerned about the commotion at the entrance and had come to check on us. As I prepared to apologize and leave, the nurse turned to Mary and said,
"Oh, it's been a while. How's your daughter doing?"
Everyone froze, their eyes widening in shock. Mary was supposed to have divorced because of infertility.
You must be mistaken.
The nurse, noticing Mary's agitation, pressed her further.
No, I'm not mistaken. I remember clearly. You gave birth to such a beautiful baby.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Diane turned to Mary, her eyes narrowing in suspicion.
Mary, what does she mean?
Andrew seemed to know everything. He looked slightly exasperated.
There's no way out now. She's a calculating woman.
What are you talking about?
It's useless to deny it now. Don't you realize the gravity of what you've done?
Let's reveal the truth. Mary, the only daughter of the real estate company's CEO, married a wealthy man a few years ago. According to Diane, it was a political marriage arranged by Mary's parents, but that wasn't the case. Mary enjoyed being the center of attention at matchmaking events and had earned a reputation as a serial attendee. At one such event, she latched on to a wealthy man, quickly married him, and soon gave birth to an adorable baby girl. After that, claiming she was exhausted from childcare and needed to relieve stress, Mary started dumping her responsibilities on her husband and began going out frequently, just like before. She got involved with numerous men and stopped coming home regularly. Naturally, her husband and his parents were furious. Mary, however, lashed out in return and chose her carefree lifestyle over her own child, leading to their divorce. Not wanting anyone to know the truth behind the divorce, Mary fabricated a sob story.
They blamed me for being infertile, and my days were filled with sadness. Then, suddenly, my ex-husband brought home a child he'd fathered with someone else and forced me to raise it. I tried my best, but the child never warmed up to me, and eventually I was kicked out.
How she could weave such a self-serving lie is beyond me. I was left speechless. Diane, unaware of the real story, turned to Mary in shock.
Mary, is this true? Are you really that kind of woman?
What do you mean, that kind of woman? Look who's talking, you're no better.
What did you just say? Say that again.
I'll say it as many times as you want. You're just a mistress acting all high and mighty.
The two, once allies, were now at each other's throats. Gone was Mary's fragile heroine act. Now she glared at Diane with venom, her true colors fully revealed.
Don't you know there are things you just don't say? Exposing something so delicate is cruel. It's a violation of privacy.
Mary snapped, directing her outburst at Andrew.
I wasn't planning to say anything, but you kept harassing us, so it's your own fault.
It wasn't me. It's all her fault.
Well, Mary, did you just call me her?
I was just manipulated by this woman.
That's a lie I won't let slide.
The two of them hurling insults at each other with such harsh words was about to wake my peacefully sleeping baby. I felt bad for Andrew, who had rushed over from work, so I decided it was time to put an end to this. Are you two all right?
What?
What?
The police will be here soon.
What did you say?
Between telling me to get a divorce, demanding my child, and staking out for 3 days, I think there's more than enough reason to file a report.
Excuse me?
When the police question you, make sure to explain your motives and reasons honestly. Both Diane and Mary turned pale. Seeing this, Andrew added,
If they need proof of the affairs, I've got detailed evidence ready. Should I show it to them?
And if testimony is needed, I'll be happy to help. The two panicked.
Stop it.
No, we don't need that.
This is overkill. There's no need for the police.
Even these two unreasonable women weren't bold enough to explain their actions to the authorities.
The police wouldn't get involved in family matters anyway.
Diane said hastily. Family? Are you really calling yourself family after stalking us and trying to break us apart? You're nothing but a stranger to us.
A stranger? Fine, I'm a stranger. I don't know you, and you don't matter to me.
Exactly, we're not connected. So if something like this happens again,
It won't. Never again.
Diane and Mary grabbed each other's hands and fled. The truth is, I hadn't called the police at all. Even if an officer had shown up, presenting evidence of infidelity wouldn't have been particularly helpful. Using a lie to fend them off, turns out I'm quite the cunning and mischievous woman myself. Later, through the grapevine, I heard that Diane's long-term affair was finally exposed to her lover's wife. Diane, deluded into thinking he'd choose her after the divorce, was dumped outright. Now she's working with a lawyer to negotiate a reduction in the alimony his wife demanded. The person who exposed the affair. Surprisingly, it was Mary. After their fallout, things escalated.
It's your fault I was cut off because of your fake infertility story. What are you going to do about it?
Shut up. What does that have to do with me? You're just a mistress after all.
What did you say? You ruined my life. Apologize. Show some remorse.
Fed up with Diane's persistence and deciding there was no benefit in staying friendly, Mary exposed the affair to get rid of her. While Diane's predicament feels like karma, it's clear Mary is a pretty terrifying woman herself. Incidentally, Mary whimsically contacted her ex-husband to assert visitation rights and reunited with her daughter. Seeing her adorable, oblivious daughter and her ex-husband, who had become a kind and caring father, Mary regretted giving them up and tried to reconcile. However, her ex-husband, now on the verge of remarrying his new partner, told her, "That's how things are now, so please stop contacting us. Think about what's best for the child," firmly rejecting her.
I can't believe this. She's my child. I'll sue and take her back.
Mary is reportedly furious, but I can't sympathize with her. She has no right to be angry. If she reflected on her actions, she'd realize that, given the original reason for their divorce and her lack of involvement in raising the child, there's no way she could regain custody. She should stop disrupting a happy family. She needs to realize just how unnecessary she is. Meanwhile, our child is growing up healthy, and I'm actually pregnant with our second. Caring for our older child while having a big belly is exhausting. I'm drained physically and emotionally every single day. But going through all this, I understand why mothers become stronger and more resilient. Andrew casually mentions wanting one more child, and I'm sure I'll keep getting tougher. To the point that, if Diane suddenly appeared again, I'd probably just laugh and deal with her effortlessly. A mother's strength knows no bounds. When it comes to protecting your children, there's nothing to fear. There's no definitive right way to raise a child, and I'm not always confident I'm doing it well. But as long as our family can laugh and live happily together, I believe that's more than enough.